Welcome to AI News in 10, your top AI and tech news podcast in about 10 minutes. AI tech is amazing and is changing the world fast. For example, this entire podcast is curated and generated by AI using my and my kids' cloned voices. It's Saturday, December 6th, and we've got a busy one. Europe just issued its first ever fine under the Digital Services Act, targeting X, for deceptive blue check marks and transparency lapses. Meta, meanwhile, is taking a different tack with the news business, signing AI licensing deals with major US and European publishers. On the legal front, the New York Times filed a fresh suit against Perplexity over alleged verbatim copying of its work. We'll also break down Cloudflare's latest outage, why about a quarter of its traffic blinked off, and finish with OpenAI's acquisition of Neptune, a behind-the-scenes toolmaker for tracking model training. But first, let's hear a word from our sponsors.
Need elite developers fast? Elite Coders connects you with rigorously vetted senior engineers in 24 to 48 hours. Staff augmentation, dedicated teams, or full project delivery, we've got you covered. Visit elitecoders.co to get started today.
Now let's dive into today's stories. Let's start in Brussels. The European Commission fined X, formerly Twitter, 120 million euros, about $140 million, for breaking the DSA's transparency rules. Regulators say the platform's pay-to-play blue checkmark is deceptive because it can imply verification even when X hasn't meaningfully verified identity. The decision also cites a lack of ad library transparency and barriers to researcher access to public data. This is the DSA's first non-compliance decision, a signal the Commission is ready to enforce hard. X now faces tight timelines, 60 days to address the checkmark design and 90 days to improve ad transparency and researcher access, or face further penalties up to 6% of global revenue. US officials have complained that the EU unfairly targets American companies. Brussels says this is about user protection and transparency, not censorship. Expect the transatlantic rhetoric to heat up. Sources include the European Commission, Reuters, and TechCrunch. Two quick takeaways. 1. The EU is treating so-called dark patterns as a compliance risk, not just a UX faux pas. 2. Researcher access isn't a nice-to-have. It's becoming a regulatory requirement in Europe. If you operate at platform scale in the EU, keeping an up-to-date ads repository and enabling bona fide research access just moved from PR talking point to legal obligation. Sources include the European Commission, Euronews, and Al Jazeera. To the US now, where platforms are picking their strategy for AI and news. Meta announced multiple AI licensing deals with CNN, Fox News, USA Today, People, The Daily Caller, The Washington Examiner, and France's Le Monde, among others. The idea, Meta's chatbot can answer news questions and link to these outlets, drawing on real-time content under commercial agreements. Terms weren't disclosed, but the direction is clear. Rather than scrape and litigate, Meta is trying to license and integrate, betting that quality, trusted feeds will make its AI more useful and more defensible. Sources include Reuters and The Verge. It's interesting timing because on the same day, another part of the media and AI story flared. The New York Times sued Perplexity in federal court, alleging the startup copied and distributed millions of Times articles without permission, sometimes producing responses verbatim or substantially similar to paywalled work, and even hallucinated content while displaying Times trademarks. The complaint also claims Perplexity evaded robots, text, and other protections. Perplexity says it indexes public pages and disputes the characterization. However this resolves, it's setting precedent around how AI services source, summarize, and attribute journalism. Sources include Reuters and The Verge. Zooming out, you can see two diverging paths. Meta is paying to bring curated news into its AI, while some AI players face litigation over alleged unlicensed use. For publishers, it's leverage, licensing cash and distribution on one side, legal remedies on the other. For users, it could decide whether your AI assistant answers with vetted links or with mystery meat. Before we continue, here's a quick message from our sponsors.
This episode is brought to you by Family GPT, the AI chat platform actually designed for kids. If your children are curious about ChatGPT, but you're worried about what they might see, Family GPT gives you full parental controls, content filtering, and the ability to align responses with your family's values, whether Christian, Muslim, Jewish, secular, and many more. Monitor every conversation, set usage limits, and let your kids explore AI safely, No ads, no data selling, complete privacy. Sign up free at familygpt.chat. That's familygpt.chat.
All right, let's get back to it. If your favorite site sputtered yesterday, you weren't imagining it. Cloudflare had another outage, its second big one in roughly 2 weeks, briefly impacting about 28% of its HTTP traffic. The company says this was not an attack. Instead, engineers rolled out a configuration change tied to mitigating a newly disclosed React Server Components vulnerability, and that change triggered a long latent bug in the older FL1 proxy rules engine, causing HTTP 500 errors from 847 to 912 UTC. Cloudflare reverted the change and restored service in about 25 minutes. The post-mortem is unusually detailed, down to a Lua nil pointer where the failure happened, and the company says it's freezing non-essential changes while finishing a resilience overhaul that emphasizes gradual rollouts, stronger fail-open defaults, and faster rollback tooling. Sources include the Cloudflare engineering blog and Reuters. Why it matters. When a provider at Cloudflare's scale coughs, the internet catches a cold. The incident underscores both the gains and the risks of consolidating security and performance behind a few massive edge networks. Expect more customers to ask for multi-region and even multi-provider failovers, and for regulators to keep probing systemic internet fragility after a string of industry-wide outages. Source: Cloudflare engineering blog. And finally, some deal news that's small in dollar terms but big for AI plumbing. OpenAI agreed to acquire Neptune, a startup whose tools track and visualize model training, think experiment logs, metrics, and debugging across massive runs. Financials weren't disclosed, but reports peg it under $400 million in stock. OpenAI already used Neptune. Bringing it in-house tightens the feedback loop between research and operations as models scale and training gets more complex. Neptune's customers include Samsung, Roche, and HP. The product originated at DeepSense and spun out in 2018. For enterprises, this is a reminder that MLOps isn't a buzzword. It's how frontier labs keep experiments reproducible and ship on time. Source: Reuters. Quick pulse check on the day's arc. In Europe, enforcement is here. The DSA's first fine is a shot across the bow for UI design and transparency. In the US, platforms and publishers are drawing their battle lines, some licensing, some litigating. The internet's backbone showed its seams again, with a clear lesson on defensive change management. And the AI stack keeps consolidating. OpenAI's Neptune deal is about making the engine room run hotter and cleaner. That's your wrap for today. 5 stories, 1 through line. AI and tech aren't just evolving, they're being negotiated. In code commits, courtrooms, contracts, and compliance deadlines. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for listening, and a quick disclaimer, this podcast was generated and curated by AI using my and my kids' cloned voices. If you want to know how I do it, or want to do something similar, reach out to me at emad@ainews in 10.com. That's AI News in 10.com. See you all tomorrow.